The Treaty of Versailles, signed on June 28, 1919, formally ended World War I between Germany and the Allied powers. Its decisions reshaped international borders and laid down reparations that Germany was required to pay. The treaty is historically significant for its role in altering the geopolitical landscape of Europe and setting the stage for future international tensions. The origins of the Treaty of Versailles can be traced back to the end of World War I in 1918. After 4 devastating years, the Allied powers, mainly France, Britain, and the United States, sought not only to formalize the cessation of hostilities, but also to prevent future conflicts. However, differing visions for the future peace led to complex negotiations at the Paris Peace Conference, which began in January 1919. The French Premier Georges Clemenceau wanted to impose harsh terms on Germany to cripple it militarily and economically. British Prime Minister David Lloyd George had a somewhat more moderate approach, but still supported significant penalties. American President Woodrow Wilson promoted his 14 points that emphasized self-determination and a lenient peace framework centered around his idea for a League of Nations. Key decisions within the Treaty of Versailles included territorial losses for Germany, with significant regions ceded to surrounding countries. Alsace and Lorraine were returned to France. Eupen and Malmedy were given to Belgium. North Schleswig voted via plebiscite to join Denmark, and West Prussia, Posen, and Upper Silesia were transferred to Poland. This redrawing of boundaries aimed to weaken Germany strategically and economically. Moreover, the treaty imposed severe military restrictions on Germany. The army was limited to 100,000 men, conscription was banned, and they were forbidden from possessing tanks, aircraft, and submarines, while their navy was severely restricted. The political or diplomatic context surrounding these decisions was fraught with tension among the Allies themselves. Wilson's idealistic vision clashed with European desires for retribution against Germany. Ultimately, compromises led to a treaty that none of the Allied leaders were fully satisfied with, but accepted as a necessary conclusion to wartime hostilities. The consequences of these decisions were profound and immediate. Economically weakened by reparations set at 132 billion gold marks, then approximately 31 billion, Germany experienced hyperinflation by the early 1920s, which devastated its economy further. Politically, the Weimar Republic faced nationalist backlash for signing what was perceived as a diktat, an imposed settlement rather than a negotiated peace. Long-term impacts of the Treaty of Versailles have been widely debated by historians. Some argue it directly paved the way for World War II due to its punitive nature towards Germany, fostering resentment and providing fertile ground for extremist ideologies like Nazism to take root among disillusioned Germans. Others contend that while the treaty had severe flaws, external factors during the interwar period also significantly contributed to the rise of Adolf Hitler. In addition to immediate effects on Germany, broader geopolitical shifts occurred due to treaty mandates such as new nation-states being carved out in Eastern Europe, Poland being re-established after over a century partitioned between Russia, Prussia, Germany, and Austria-Hungary, and mandatory systems established under League nations supervision in territories like Palestine and Iraq. Despite Wilson's advocacy for self-determination principles outlined in his 14-point speech, the actual treaty often undermined these principles, manifesting inconsistencies between ideals espoused at Paris Peace Conference talks versus outcomes enshrined in treaty articles, a factor contributing towards global dissatisfaction with post-war peace arrangements. Moreover, Japan's gains during negotiations, territories gained from China, sparked discontent across Asia, contributing partially towards regional instability, leading into mid-20th century conflicts including World War II Pacific theaters. Furthermore, while inaugurating League nations intended as an instrument preventing future wars through collective security mechanisms, it ultimately failed in this mission. lacking enforcement capabilities especially after U.S. Senate rejection participation. Based partly on opposition from isolationists who feared entangling alliances would lead America into unnecessary foreign disputes, adhering strictly neutrality policies popular among many constituencies then. Ultimately, though, criticized heavily, both contemporaneously, retrospectively. The Treaty Versailles stands historic document attempted reshape world order aftermath, one most destructive conflict's history, thus laying foundations, albeit unstable ones, for subsequent global developments throughout 20th century, including formation United Nations, post-Second World War aimed at addressing shortcomings earlier League system, improving prospects enduring peace. However, challenging practical realization might prove different historical junctures. In conclusion, while deeply flawed in many respects, and arguably contributing significantly toward geopolitical tensions leading up into another world war, the Treaty Versailles nonetheless represents critical landmark diplomatic history, reflecting complex interplay national interests, aspirations, victorious powers, aftermath. Cataclysmic conflict shaped much modern international relations landscape we know today, thus making study understanding its provisions, consequences essential anyone seeking grasp, forces shaping our world across decades, even centuries beyond signing nearly century ago. Now Palace Hall mirrors where once ambitious, yet ultimately unfulfilled hopes. Peace first cast fragile form onto pages, history books thereafter, continuously debated scholars, policymakers alike ever since.